Maya stood in the hallway of her apartment building, still wearing her black dress from the dinner party that had just ended in complete disaster. Her hands were covered in flour, and she could feel her mascara running down her cheeks. The evening was supposed to be perfect. She had invited her boss and 3 important clients to her apartment, hoping to impress them with her cooking skills and maybe finally get that promotion she had been working toward for 2 years. But everything went wrong. First, the pasta sauce burned while she was answering work calls. Then she accidentally used salt instead of sugar in the dessert. And just when she thought things couldn't get worse, her bathroom door handle completely broke while her boss was inside. He was trapped for almost 20 minutes, banging on the door while Maya tried everything she could think of to get him out. She had to call the building maintenance, but they couldn't come until morning. Her boss finally escaped through the bathroom window, which opened onto the fire escape. He climbed down 3 floors in his expensive suit, not looking very happy about it. The evening ended with everyone leaving early, and Maya knew her chances of getting promoted had probably walked out the door with them. Now it was almost midnight, and Maya had another important meeting scheduled at her apartment tomorrow evening. This time it was with a potential new client who could bring in a huge account for her marketing company. She couldn't let them see her apartment with a broken bathroom door. She needed help, and she needed it fast. Maya looked down the hallway toward apartment 4B. She had seen her neighbor coming and going for months, but had never really talked to him. His name was David, she thought, or maybe Daniel. She wasn't sure. He always carried a toolbox and had paint stains on his clothes, so she figured he worked in construction or something like that. He seemed nice enough, always nodding hello when they passed each other in the hallway. But Maya had been too busy with work to make friends with her neighbors. She took a deep breath and knocked on his door. After a few moments, she heard footsteps, and the door opened. The man standing there was about her age, wearing a faded blue t-shirt and jeans. His brown hair was messy, like he had been lying on the couch watching TV. He looked surprised to see her, especially dressed up and obviously upset. "Hi," Maya said, suddenly feeling embarrassed. "I'm your neighbor from 4A. I know we haven't really met properly, but I have a big problem, and I was wondering if maybe you could help me." "Sure," he said, his voice kind and calm. "I'm David, by the way. What's going on?" Maya felt relief wash over her. At least he seemed willing to listen. "My bathroom door handle broke during a dinner party, and I have another important meeting here tomorrow night. I know it's really late, and I'm sorry to bother you, but I didn't know who else to ask. Do you think you could take a look at it?" David didn't hesitate. "Let me grab my tools," he said, disappearing into his apartment for a moment. He came back with a red toolbox and followed her to her apartment. Maya's living room was still a mess from the dinner party. Dishes were piled in the sink, and there were flour handprints on the kitchen counter. She felt even more embarrassed having a stranger see her place like this. But David didn't seem to notice or care. He went straight to the bathroom door and examined the broken handle. "Yeah, I can see the problem," he said, kneeling down to get a better look. "The whole mechanism is loose. The screws have come out of the wood. Can you fix it?" Maya asked hopefully. "I think so," David said, opening his toolbox. "It might take a little while, though. The holes where the screws go are probably stripped out, so I'll need to fill them and re-drill." Maya watched as David worked. He was very focused, testing different screws and examining the door frame carefully. She had expected him to be annoyed about being bothered so late, but he seemed genuinely happy to help. As he worked, they started talking. "So you're in marketing?" David asked, not looking up from what he was doing. "Yeah," Maya said, leaning against the door frame. "I work for a company downtown." "What about you?" "Construction." David laughed. "Sort of. I'm a carpenter. I make custom furniture and do home repairs. I used to work in an office, but I decided I wanted to do something with my hands." Maya was surprised. She had assumed he was just a regular handyman. "That sounds interesting. What kind of furniture do you make?" "Tables, chairs, bookshelves, whatever people want, really." I have a workshop in the basement of this building. The landlord lets me use it in exchange for doing repairs around here. As David continued working, Maya found herself relaxing for the first time all evening. There was something calming about watching someone who really knew what they were doing. David's hands moved confidently as he worked, and he explained what he was doing in simple terms that made sense to her. I'm really sorry about bothering you so late, Maya said again. I was just so stressed about tomorrow's meeting. Don't worry about it, David said, looking up at her with a smile. I wasn't doing anything important, just watching old movies. Besides, neighbors should help each other out, right? Maya realized she couldn't remember the last time someone had helped her without expecting anything in return. Her life had become so focused on work and getting ahead that she had forgotten what it felt like to have someone just be kind. After about an hour, David tested the door handle. It worked perfectly. There you go, he said, packing up his tools. Good as new. Thank you so much, Maya said, feeling genuinely grateful. How much do I owe you? David waved his hand. Nothing. It was just a quick fix, like I said. Neighbors help neighbors. Maya couldn't believe it. She had been prepared to pay whatever it cost. But David didn't want anything. She felt like she should do something to show her appreciation. At least let me make you some coffee, she offered. It's the least I can do. David looked at his watch. It's pretty late, please, Maya said. I feel terrible about bothering you, and I want to thank you properly. David smiled. Okay? Coffee sounds good. Maya made coffee while David cleaned up his tools. They sat at her small kitchen table, and Maya found herself telling him about the disastrous dinner party. David listened and laughed at all the right parts, making her feel better about the whole situation. Your boss climbed down the fire escape, David asked, grinning. 3 floors in his best suit. Maya confirmed. I thought he was going to fire me on the spot. I bet he'll have a good story to tell at work on Monday, David said. Sometimes the worst disasters make the best memories. Maya had never thought about it that way. She had been so worried about how the evening would affect her career that she hadn't considered that maybe, years from now, everyone would laugh about it. As they talked, Maya realized she was enjoying herself more than she had in months. David was easy to talk to, and he had a way of making her feel like her problems weren't as big as they seemed. When he finally left around 1 a.m., Maya felt lighter somehow. Like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She cleaned up the kitchen and got ready for bed, thinking about how kind David had been. She had lived in the building for almost a year but had never really gotten to know any of her neighbors. Maybe it was time to change that. The next morning, Maya woke up feeling better about everything. Her bathroom door worked perfectly, and she realized that maybe the dinner party disaster wasn't the end of the world after all. As she got ready for work, she found herself hoping she would run into David in the hallway so she could thank him again. Maya woke up Saturday morning feeling optimistic about her client meeting that evening. The bathroom door was working perfectly, and she had David to thank for that. She made herself breakfast and started preparing for the meeting, laying out documents and cleaning up the last bits of mess from Friday night's disaster. Around 10 a.m., she heard a knock at her door. When she opened it, David was standing there with his red toolbox, looking concerned. Hey, Maya, he said. I hope you don't mind, but I was thinking about your door last night. I want to take another quick look at it. Something didn't feel quite right when I was working on it. Of course, Maya said, stepping aside to let him in. Is everything okay? David went straight to the bathroom and started examining the door frame more carefully than he had the night before. After a few minutes, his expression grew serious. I hate to tell you this, he said, but we have a bigger problem than I thought. Look at this. He pointed to the wood around the door frame. This area is soft and spongy. That means water damage. There's probably a leak somewhere behind this wall. Maya felt her stomach drop. What does that mean exactly? Well, the good news is the door handle will keep working fine, David said. But this water damage could get worse if we don't fix it, and if there's a leak, it could be affecting other apartments too. Maya sat down on her couch, feeling overwhelmed. I have that important client meeting here in just a few hours. This client could make or break my year at work. David could see how stressed she was. Don't panic, he said gently. I can work around your meeting. I'll need to open up the wall a bit to see what's going on, but I can do it in sections. Your meeting can still happen. Are you sure? Maya asked. I can't afford to mess this up. Trust me, David said with a reassuring smile. I'll make sure everything goes smoothly. I might need to run out to get some supplies, but I'll be quiet when your client is here. Maya felt grateful all over again. You're being so kind about this. Please let me pay you this time. This is way more work than just fixing a door handle. David shook his head. We'll figure that out later. Right now, let's just focus on getting this sorted out. David started working carefully, removing small sections of the wall to investigate. Maya made coffee and brought him a cup, then sat nearby as he explained what he was finding. The leak is coming from the pipe that runs behind your bathroom wall, David said. It's been dripping for a while, probably months. The water has been soaking into the wood frame, which is why the door handle screws came loose in the first place. As the morning went on, Maya found herself enjoying watching David work. He was methodical and careful, and he seemed to genuinely care about doing the job right. They talked while he worked, and Maya learned more about his life. So you really left an office job to become a carpenter? She asked. David nodded, not looking up from what he was doing. I was an engineer for 5 years. Good money, nice office. But I was miserable. I spent all day staring at a computer screen, designing things I never got to touch or build myself. What made you finally decide to change? Maya asked. David paused in his work. My dad died 2 years ago. He was a carpenter, too, and he always told me that work should make you happy, not just pay the bills. After he passed, I realized I was wasting time doing something that didn't make me feel alive. Maya was quiet for a moment. She had never thought about work that way. Her job was stressful and demanding, but she had always assumed that was just how careers were supposed to be. Do you miss the steady paycheck? She asked. Sometimes, David admitted, but I sleep better at night now, and when I finish a project, I can actually see what I've accomplished. That's worth a lot. By afternoon, David had identified and temporarily fixed the leak. He would need to come back tomorrow to finish the wall repair, but everything would be ready for Maya's meeting. At 6 p.m., Maya's client arrived. Mr. Rodriguez was a serious man in his 50s who owned a chain of restaurants and was looking for a marketing company to help expand his business. Maya had prepared thoroughly for this meeting, and despite the construction mess in her hallway, everything went well. Rodriguez was actually impressed by the work being done. I like that you're taking care of your place, he said. Shows attention to detail. That's what I need in a marketing partner. The meeting was a success. Mr. Rodriguez agreed to hire Maya's company for a 6-month trial, which could turn into a long-term contract if things went well. When he left, Maya was thrilled. David had been working quietly in the basement workshop during the meeting, giving Maya privacy. When she texted him that the coast was clear, he came back up to check on things. How did it go? He asked. Better than I could have hoped, Maya said, beaming. I think I got the account. That's fantastic, David said, and Maya could tell he genuinely meant it. You deserve it after the week you've had. I couldn't have done it without you. Maya said, if you hadn't fixed everything, I would have had to cancel the meeting. David smiled. I'm just glad it worked out. As David packed up his tools for the day, Maya realized she didn't want him to leave. She had enjoyed having him around, and her apartment felt less lonely with someone else there. Are you hungry? She asked impulsively. I was going to order some food to celebrate. You're welcome to stay if you want. David hesitated. I don't want to intrude on your celebration. You're not intruding, Maya said. Besides, we're neighbors, and after today, I'd say we're friends too. David smiled at that. Okay, food sounds good. They ended up ordering pizza and eating it at Maya's kitchen table while David explained what he would need to do tomorrow to finish the repairs. Maya found herself paying more attention to David than to what he was saying. She noticed how his eyes crinkled when he smiled. and how he used his hands when he talked about his work, you know? Maya said as they finished eating, "I've lived in this building for almost a year, and you're the first neighbor I've actually gotten to know." "Really?" David asked, surprised. "Why is that?" Maya thought about it. "I guess I've been so focused on work that I forgot about everything else. I leave early, come home late, work on weekends. I never took time to meet anyone." "That sounds lonely," David said quietly. "It was," Maya admitted. "I just didn't realize it until now." David helped her clean up the pizza boxes, and they talked until almost 10 p.m. When he finally left, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. She felt connected to someone, like she had a real friend. The next morning, David came back to finish the wall repair. Maya made breakfast for both of them without even thinking about it. It felt natural, like something they had been doing for years instead of just today's. "You don't have to cook for me," David said as Maya handed him a plate of eggs and toast. "I want to," Maya said. "Besides, it's the least I can do." As David worked on finishing the repairs, Maya realized she was going to miss having him around once the project was done. Her apartment would feel empty again, and she would go back to her routine of work, take out dinners, and Netflix alone on the couch. When David finished the work that afternoon, both the door and the wall looked perfect. You couldn't even tell there had been a problem. "All done," David said, closing his toolbox. "Everything should work fine now." Maya looked around her apartment. It looked better than it had when she first moved in. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." David nodded and headed toward the door. Maya watched him go, feeling an unexpected sadness. She wanted to say something, to find a reason for him to stay longer, but she couldn't think of what. Just as David reached the door, he turned back. "Hey Maya," he said. "I was wondering, would you like to grab dinner sometime? I mean, as neighbors and friends." Maya felt her heart skip. "I'd like that," she said, smiling. "I'd like that a lot." 3 weeks after David fixed Maya's bathroom door, their dinner plan had somehow turned into a regular thing. It started with that first meal at a small Italian restaurant down the street, where they talked for 3 hours and closed the place down. Then David mentioned that Maya's kitchen faucet was dripping, and maybe he could take a look at it. One thing led to another, and now he was at her apartment almost every evening. Maya couldn't quite figure out how it happened. David would show up after work with his toolbox, claiming he noticed something that needed fixing. A loose cabinet door one day, a squeaky window the next. Maya started cooking dinner for two without really thinking about it. It felt natural, like they had been doing this for years instead of weeks. Tonight was no different. David was lying under Maya's kitchen sink, working on the pipes, while Maya stirred pasta sauce on the stove. They had fallen into an easy rhythm of conversation. While they both worked, "Hand me that wrench," David called out from under the sink. Maya looked at the collection of tools scattered on her kitchen floor. "Which one is the wrench again?" David's hand appeared from under the sink, pointing. "The silver one that looks like it could crack someone's skull." Maya laughed and handed him the tool. "You know, I'm starting to think you're making up problems just to have an excuse to come over." There was a moment of silence from under the sink. "Would that bother you if I was?" David asked quietly. Maya felt her cheeks warm. "No," she said honestly. "I like having you here." This was the closest they had come to talking about what was actually happening between them. Maya had been wondering about it for days. Were they friends? Something more? She was afraid to ask, because she didn't want to ruin whatever they had. David emerged from under the sink, his hair messy and a streak of grease on his cheek. "All fixed," he said, turning on the faucet to test it. The annoying drip was gone. "You're amazing," Maya said, meaning it. "I have been living with that drip for months." David smiled and started packing up his tools. It's nice to have projects that don't involve dealing with difficult clients or arguing about budgets. Maya had learned that David's carpentry business was going well. He had gotten several new customers through word of mouth, and he was starting to make almost as much money as he had in his engineering job. But more importantly, he seemed genuinely happy with his work. "Speaking of clients," Maya said, I got some good news. Today, that restaurant owner, Mr. Rodriguez, wants to extend our contract. He's been so happy with our marketing campaign that he's referring us to other restaurant owners. That's fantastic, David said, and Maya could see he was genuinely excited. For her, you've been working so hard on that account. Maya had been working hard. But she had also noticed something interesting. Ever since David had been coming around, she felt less stressed about work. She was sleeping better, laughing more, and somehow getting more done during the day. It was like having something to look forward to at home made everything else easier to handle. They sat down to eat dinner, and Maya found herself studying David's face in the soft light from her kitchen lamp. When had she started noticing things like the way he smiled with his whole face? Or how he always listened carefully when she talked about her day? Maya, David said suddenly. Can I ask you something? Sure, Maya said, though something in his tone made her nervous. Are you happy? David asked. I mean, with your life, your job, everything. Maya considered the question. A month ago, she would have said yes automatically. She had a good job, a nice apartment, and she was climbing the corporate ladder just like she had always planned. But now, sitting across from David in her kitchen, she realized her old answer wasn't quite true anymore. I'm happier now than I was a month ago, she said carefully. Why do you ask? David looked down at his plate. I've been thinking about something my dad used to say. He told me that life is too short to spend it with the wrong people or doing the wrong things. I never really understood what he meant until after he died. Maya waited for him to continue. I spent 5 years in that engineering job being miserable, because I thought that was what I was supposed to do, David said. I had this idea that happiness was something you earned after you achieved all your goals. But my dad was happy every day, even when money was tight or work was hard. He was happy because he was doing what he loved with people he cared about. Maya felt something shift in her chest. What made you think about this tonight? David looked up at her. You did, he said simply. I look forward to coming here every day. I make up excuses to spend time with you because being here makes me happy in a way I had forgotten was possible. Maya's heart started beating faster. David, before she could finish her thought, Maya's phone rang loudly from the living room. She recognized the ringtone immediately. It was her mother. Maya looked at David apologetically. I should probably take this, she said. My mom only calls when something's wrong or when she's bored. Either way, she'll keep calling until I answer. Maya went to answer the phone, leaving David at the kitchen table. Hi, Mom, she said, walking back toward the kitchen as she talked. Maya, sweetheart, I have wonderful news. Her mother's voice was bright and excited. I'm coming to visit you next weekend. I want to see your apartment and meet your boyfriend. Maya froze. My what? Your boyfriend, her mother repeated. You've been talking about David for weeks now. David fixed this. David said that. David thinks this. When a woman talks about a man that much, he's either her boyfriend or she wants him to be. Maya looked at David, who was pretending not to listen, but was obviously hearing every word. Her mother had a voice that carried. Mom, David isn't my boyfriend, Maya said. Though even as she said it, she wondered if that was really true. He's just a friend who's been helping me with some repairs. Her mother said in that tone that meant she didn't believe a word of it. Well, I can't wait to meet this friend of yours. I'll be there Friday evening. After Maya hung up the phone, she and David looked at each other across the kitchen. The conversation they had been having before the call suddenly felt unfinished and important. So, David said carefully, your mom thinks I'm your boyfriend. She thinks everyone is my boyfriend, Maya said quickly. Last year she was convinced I was dating my mailman because I mentioned him twice. David laughed, but Maya could see something uncertain in his eyes. Maya, he said, what are we doing here? Maya sat back down at the table. It was a question she had been avoiding, but now it was hanging in the air between them and couldn't be ignored anymore. I don't know, she admitted. I've never had anything like this before. I mean, I've dated people, but this feels different. We're not dating, but we're not just friends either. We're something in between, and I don't know what to call it. David nodded slowly. I've been thinking the same thing. I've never had a friendship like this either. But I don't want to mess it up by trying to put a label on it. Maya understood exactly what he meant. What they had felt too precious and too new to risk changing it. But at the same time, she was starting to realize that not talking about it was creating its own kind of tension. What if we just keep doing what we're doing? Maya suggested. When your mom comes to visit, we'll figure out how to explain it. Maybe by then we'll understand it better ourselves. David smiled, and Maya felt some of the tension leave the room. That sounds like a plan, he said. And Maya, whatever this is, I'm glad we're doing it. After David left that night, Maya lay in bed thinking about their conversation. She realized that for the first time in her adult life, she wasn't trying to plan or control what happened next. She was just letting it unfold naturally. And surprisingly, that felt okay. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe when you talked about someone that much, it meant something more than friendship. Maybe Maya was ready to find out what that something was. 6 months had passed since Maya first knocked on David's door asking for help. What started as a simple favor had grown into something beautiful and comfortable. They had their routines now. David would come over most evenings, sometimes with a small repair project, sometimes just to have dinner and watch movies. Maya's mother had visited twice and absolutely loved David, though she still insisted on calling him Maya's boyfriend. Despite their protests, everything was going perfectly. Until the phone call that changed everything. Maya was at work on a Tuesday morning when her boss called her into his office. She walked in expecting to discuss the Rodriguez account, which had been going so well that they were expanding into social media marketing. Instead, her boss looked uncomfortable and avoided making eye contact. Maya, I need to talk to you about some changes happening at the company, he said, gesturing for her to sit down. Maya felt her stomach drop. The tone of his voice told her this wasn't going to be good news. The company is going through some financial difficulties, her boss continued. We've lost to major clients this quarter, and we need to make some cuts. I'm really sorry, Maya, but we're going to have to let you go. Maya stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. But the Rodriguez account is doing so well, she said weakly, and I just brought in 3 new clients last month. I know. And you've been doing excellent work, her boss said. This isn't about your performance. It's just about numbers. We have to cut costs, and unfortunately, that means cutting positions. Maya felt numb as her boss explained the details. She would get 2 weeks' severance pay and could finish out the week. The Rodriguez account would be transferred to another employee. Just like that, 2 years of hard work and the promotion she had finally earned were gone. Maya cleaned out her desk in a daze and drove home in the middle of the afternoon. She sat in her apartment, staring at the walls David had repaired months ago, trying to figure out what to do next. She had some money saved, but not enough to go without work for very long. The job market was tough, and she had no idea how long it would take to find something new. When David showed up that evening with takeout food and a smile, Maya couldn't bring herself to tell him what had happened. He was so excited about a new custom bookshelf project he had landed that she didn't want to ruin his good mood with her problems. You're quiet tonight, David said as they ate dinner. Everything okay? Just tired, Maya lied. Long day at work, over. The next few days, Maya threw herself into job searching. She sent out dozens of applications and went to networking events, but everything seemed hopeless. The few interviews she managed to get led nowhere. Companies were hiring, but they wanted people with more experience or different skills. Maya became moody and withdrawn. She stopped cooking dinner and started ordering takeout every night. When David offered to help her look for jobs or practice interview skills, she snapped at him. I don't need you to fix this, she said one evening when he suggested she might want to consider freelance marketing work. I can handle my own career. David looked hurt. I was just trying to help. Well, I didn't ask for your help, Maya said, immediately regretting the words but too proud to take them back. The worst part was that David didn't fight back. He just nodded quietly and left earlier than usual. Maya knew she was being unfair. to him, but she felt like she was drowning and didn't know how to ask for help without admitting how scared she was. Meanwhile, David was dealing with his own difficult decision. A week after Maya lost her job, he got a phone call that could change everything. His college friend Alex, who had moved to Portland 3 years ago, was starting a custom furniture business and wanted David as a partner. "This is exactly what you've been working toward," Alex said during their video call. "We already have enough orders to keep us busy for 6 months. And the cost of living here is way cheaper than where you are now. You could have your own workshop space and really grow the business." David knew it was an incredible opportunity. Alex was talented and business smart, and Portland's art scene was perfect for custom furniture. It was everything David had dreamed about when he first left his engineering job, but it would mean leaving Maya. And David realized he couldn't imagine his life without her anymore. Their daily dinners, their easy conversations, the way she made him laugh, it had all become so important to him. The problem was, he didn't know if Maya felt the same way. They had never officially defined their relationship, and lately, she seemed to be pulling away from him. "I need to think about it," David told Alex. "Can you give me a week to decide?" "Of course," Alex said, "but don't wait too long. I need to know so I can start looking for someone else if you're not interested." David spent the next few days agonizing over the decision. He tried to bring it up with Maya several times, but she was always distracted or stressed about her job search. Finally, he decided he couldn't wait any longer. "Maya," David said one evening as they sat on her couch watching TV, "I need to talk to you about something important." Maya muted the television and turned to face him, though she looked like she was expecting bad news. "I got a job offer," David said. "Well, sort of. A business opportunity in Portland. My friend Alex wants me to be his partner in a furniture company." Maya felt her heart sink, but she forced herself to smile. "That's great," she said, though her voice sounded flat. "Portland is supposed to be a really nice city." David studied her face, trying to read her expression. "It is a great opportunity," he said carefully, "but it would mean moving across the country." "When would you have to decide?" Maya asked. "Soon," David said. "Alex needs to know by the end of the week." Maya nodded, still trying to keep her expression neutral. "You should take it," she said. "It sounds like exactly what you've been working toward." David felt disappointed by her response. He had hoped she would ask him to stay, or at least seem upset about the possibility of him leaving. Instead, she seemed almost eager to get rid of him. "Are you sure?" David asked. "I mean, things have been good here. Between us, I mean." Maya felt tears threatening, but she held them back. She was unemployed, stressed, and scared about her future. The last thing David needed was her problems holding him back from his dreams. "David, we were never really anything official," she said, the words cutting her as she spoke them. "You should do what's best for your career. Don't worry about me." David stared at her for a long moment. "Is that really how you feel?" he asked quietly. Maya wanted to tell him the truth, that the thought of him leaving made her feel like her world was falling apart, that he had become the best part of her day, that she thought she might be falling in love with him. Instead, she just nodded. "Okay then," David said, standing up. "I guess I have my answer." After David left that night, Maya cried harder than she had since losing her job. She realized that in trying to protect herself from being hurt, she had pushed away the one person who made her feel less alone. David walked back to his apartment feeling confused and hurt. He had thought they had something special, but maybe he had been imagining it. Maybe Maya really did just see him as a helpful neighbor and nothing more. The next morning, David called Alex and accepted the partnership offer. He would move to Portland in 2 weeks. Maya heard the news from their neighbor Mrs. Chen, who mentioned seeing David loading boxes into his car. Maya realized she had made the biggest mistake of her life, but she didn't know how to fix it. She had told him to go, and now he was leaving, for the first time since losing her job. Maya realized that some things were more important than her pride, but it might already be too late to do anything about it. Maya spent 3 days walking around her apartment like a ghost. Every corner reminded her of David, the bathroom door he had fixed, the kitchen sink where he had worked, the couch where they had spent countless evenings watching movies together. She kept expecting to hear his knock at the door, but it never came. Mrs. Chen had mentioned seeing David loading boxes, but Maya hadn't seen him herself. She wondered if he was avoiding her, or if he was just busy preparing for his move to Portland. Either way, the silence between them felt louder than any argument they could have had. On Thursday evening, Maya couldn't take it anymore. She had been rehearsing what she wanted to say for hours, but every time she walked toward David's door, she lost her nerve. Finally, she decided to check if he was even still in the building. She went down to the basement workshop where David always worked on his projects. The workshop door was open, and Maya could see David inside, carefully wrapping his tools in cloth and packing them into boxes. The sight of him preparing to leave made everything feel real in a way it hadn't before. In just a few days, he would be gone, and she would never see him again. Maya stood in the doorway for a moment, watching him work. He looked tired, and there was something sad about the way he was handling each tool, like he was saying goodbye to more than just his workspace. "David," Maya said quietly. He looked up, surprised to see her there. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then David went back to packing, though he moved more slowly than before. "Mrs. Chen told me you're leaving soon," Maya said, stepping into the workshop. Saturday morning, David said without looking at her. "Alex booked me a flight." Maya felt her heart sink. Saturday was only 2 days away. That's fast. "No point in dragging it out," David said, finally meeting her eyes. "You made it pretty clear that there's nothing keeping me here." Maya felt like she had been punched in the stomach. "David, that's not what I meant, isn't it?" David asked, setting down the tool he was wrapping. "You told me we were never anything official. You told me to do what was best for my career and not worry about you. What else was I supposed to think?" Maya realized how her words must have sounded to him. She had been trying to be strong and independent, but instead she had made him feel like he didn't matter to her. "I was scared," Maya admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I lost my job, and I felt like everything in my life was falling apart. I didn't want to be another problem for you to solve." David stopped packing and looked at her fully for the first time since she had arrived. "Maya, you were never a problem for me. You were the best part of my day." Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. "Then why didn't you fight for us? When I told you to leave, why didn't you tell me you wanted to stay?" David was quiet for a long moment. "Because I was scared to," he said finally. "My dad always told me that love should make life better, not harder. But when he died, watching my mom fall apart made me realize how much it hurts to lose someone you love. I've been afraid to get too attached to anyone since then." "But you did get attached," Maya said. "Didn't you?" David smiled sadly. "More than I wanted to admit. That's why it hurts so much when you seemed so eager for me to leave." Maya took a step closer to him. "I wasn't eager for you to leave. I was terrified that you would leave. So I convinced myself it was better to push you away first." They stood there looking at each other across the cluttered workshop, both realizing how badly they had misunderstood each other. "David," Maya said, "what if I told you that losing you feels worse than losing my job? What if I told you that the last 6 months with you have been the happiest I've ever been?" "I'd say the same thing," David replied. "And I'd say that I've been an idiot for not telling you how I feel before now." "How do you feel?" Maya asked, though she was almost afraid to hear the answer. David set down his tools and walked over to her. "I love you," he said simply. "I love having dinner with you every night. I love the way you make me laugh. I love that you let me take care of you sometimes, and I love that you take care of me too. I love the person I am when I'm with you." Maya felt like she could breathe again for the first time in days. "I love you too," she said. "I love you so much that it scares me. I've never felt this way about anyone before." David reached out and took her hands. "So what do we do now? My flight is in 2 days, and Alex is counting on me." Maya thought about it. A week ago, She would have told David that he had to choose between her and his career. But she had learned something important over the past few days. Love wasn't about holding someone back from their dreams. It was about finding a way to dream together. You should go to Portland, Maya said, and David's face fell. But not without me. David stared at her. What do you mean? I mean, I've been thinking about what I want to do next. Maya said, I could freelance from anywhere. I could start my own marketing consultancy. Portland has lots of small businesses that need marketing help. Maya, you can't just uproot your whole life for me, David said, though she could see hope in his eyes. I'm not doing it just for you, Maya said. I'm doing it for us, and I'm doing it for me too. Maybe it's time for me to take a risk and try something new. David pulled her closer. Are you sure? Starting over in a new city is a big deal. Maya smiled. I'm sure. Besides, I've learned something important recently. Home isn't a place. It's the person you can be yourself with. And David, you're my home. David kissed her then, and Maya felt like everything finally made sense. This was what had been missing from her life before. Not just love, but partnership. Someone who made her want to be braver and dream bigger. There's one problem, David said when they broke apart. I already packed all my tools. Maya laughed. I guess you'll have to unpack them. We have an apartment to get ready for the move. They spent the rest of the evening making plans. David called Alex to explain the situation, and Alex was thrilled to learn that David's girlfriend was a marketing expert who could help grow their business. Maya started researching Portland neighborhoods and apartment listings 2 months later. Maya and David stood in their new workshop space in Portland, watching David teach a furniture-making class while Maya worked on a marketing plan for 3 new local clients. Maya's freelance business was growing faster than she had expected, and David's partnership with Alex was everything he had hoped it would be, you know? Maya said as they walked home that evening, I never thanked you properly for fixing my bathroom door. David laughed. I think helping me pack and move across the country was thanks enough. No, Maya said, stopping to look at him seriously. I mean it. If you hadn't helped me that night, none of this would have happened. I would still be alone in my apartment, working too much and forgetting to live. David took her hand as they continued walking. I was thinking the same thing when you knocked on my door asking for help. I thought it was just about fixing a door handle. I had no idea you were actually asking me to help you build a whole new life. Maya smiled. Lifetime commitment, you could say. The best kind, David agreed as they reached their new apartment building. Maya realized that sometimes the biggest changes in life start with the smallest requests. She had asked for one night of help, but what she had really been asking for, without knowing it, was someone to share her life with, and somehow, David had understood that from the very beginning. Their story had started with a broken door, but it had led them to something that could never be broken, a love built on friendship, trust, and the willingness to help each other through anything life might bring.